You're making $50,000 a year and your bank account looks exactly the same as it did 6 months ago. Your rent went up, groceries quietly added another $40 to $60 a week, and somehow you're using Klarna to buy basic stuff like clothes and household items. Meanwhile, the 30-year mortgage rate is sitting around 6.1%, which means owning a home still feels like some fantasy for other people, not for you. Here's the thing. It's not just you're bad with money. The Federal Reserve has the Fed funds rate in the 3.5 to 3.75% range, which pushes up borrowing costs across the entire system, while your bank is paying you close to nothing on savings. Inflation is only 2.7% year over year on paper right now, and everybody on TV is celebrating that like it's some miracle. But you don't live in the CPI spreadsheet. You live in the aisle where eggs, rent, insurance, and utilities quietly ratchet up and never come back down. So yeah, you can cut Starbucks, but that's not going to move the needle when housing, food, and debt service are structurally eating you alive. The game is rigged in favor of people who own assets and have access to cheap capital. And right now, with that Fed rate where it is, you're on the expensive side of that equation. That's why this video matters, because if your personal credit is trash, you feel locked out of the one lever that actually changes the game: access to business credit. I'm MD Tanvir. Welcome to Business Geek. I look at the numbers so you don't have to panic. And if you're tired of the system playing games with your wallet, subscribe and hit the thumbs up. Most channels are going to tell you to save more, cut expenses, stop buying Uber Eats. But the math in 2026 makes that basically impossible to save your way to freedom unless you completely change strategy. The system turned your labor into a hamster wheel. Your paycheck feeds inflation, your savings lose value quietly at 2.7% a year, and the cost of any big leap, house, car, business, comes with a 6% plus interest bill attached. So instead of playing the game like a consumer, this video is about flipping your role into an owner and using business credit built on your EIN only, no SSN, no personal guarantee, to get up to $75,000 in funding even if your personal credit score is garbage. This video contains affiliate links. Before getting into the exact playbook for getting up to $75,000 in business credit with bad personal credit, no SSN, EIN only, there's a foundation you absolutely cannot skip. You cannot build serious business credit on a shaky, half-baked setup. Most people try to do this as a sole proprietor, or they rush through an LLC filing with missing pieces, and then they wonder why lenders and credit bureaus don't take them seriously. Your business has to look like a legitimate, separate legal entity in the eyes of lenders and the bureaus, not just you with a different name. That's where Busy comes in. Busy is a business formation service that handles your entire LLC formation for $0 plus state fees. Their entry-level basic tier is literally $0 plus whatever your state charges. They take care of the articles of organization, registered agent service for the first year, EIN obtainment, and ongoing compliance alerts. So you're not guessing whether your LLC is actually set up correctly or about to fall out of good standing. If you're serious about EIN-only business credit, this step is non-negotiable. You need that legal separation between you and the business, clean paperwork, a recognized entity, and a structure that lenders can plug into their systems without red flags. The Busy link is in the description. Get that handled first so you're not trying to build funding on top of a foundation the bureaus and banks don't respect. Now, here's the other piece nobody talks about. Once you start getting approved for business credit and funding, you need to know about every opportunity available. That's why I recommend subscribing to my newsletter, Business Geek. I send you weekly updates on the latest business grants and credit companies that are actively issuing funding to brand new companies, including the ones that just opened their application windows. In this newsletter, I also provide insider tips and tricks on how to apply the right way so you're not wasting time on applications that go nowhere. It's completely free, and it's how a lot of my subscribers stay on top of every funding opportunity for themselves and their clients. Link in the description. Sign up before we get into the strategy so you don't miss anything. Okay, now let's get into it. Let's be real. The headlines say inflation is easing, but easing from you're drowning to you're still drowning, just slower, is not a win. When the Fed sits with rates at 3.5 to 3.75% and mortgage rates float above 6%, they're basically telling you, if you don't already own assets or have leverage, stay in your lane and rent forever. That's why people feel this weird disconnect. Wall Street claps because CPI cooled, but your lifestyle doesn't feel any cheaper. Here's what's actually happening. Your purchasing power is being quietly eroded every year by inflation, even at only 2.7%. Your cost of capital, what you pay to borrow, is still high because the Fed funds rate is elevated. Your income growth is not keeping up in real terms, so it feels like you're running in place. This creates a nasty psychological trap. You start blaming yourself and fall into loss aversion. You become more afraid of losing the little stability you have than you are excited about the potential upside of taking calculated risks. You delay everything that could move you forward because of hyperbolic discounting. You overweight the pain right now, like I can't take on any more debt, and underweight the payoff later, like owning an actual cash-flowing business in 3 years. And then the system piles on. Your personal credit score gets dinged from late payments, high utilization, or some medical bill in collections, and now every traditional lender is like, sorry, come back when you're perfect. But in the background, there's a completely different world of EIN-only business credit. Cards and lines that look at your business revenues, cash deposits, or even investor backing and ignore your personal FICO completely. So let's talk about why Save More is a rigged suggestion in this environment, and why you have to start thinking like a business even if your personal credit is trash. If you put $10,000 in a basic savings account paying something pathetic like 0.01%, you make $1 in interest over a year. Meanwhile, inflation at 2.7% means the real-world purchasing power of that money drops by about $270 in that same year. So on paper, you have $10,100, but in reality, it buys the equivalent of $9,731 compared to last year. Now compare that to using a high-yield business savings or cash account that pays something closer to 4% in this rate environment, which is realistic because rates across the board are elevated. That same $10,000 earns $400 a year, which doesn't fully beat 2.7% inflation, but it significantly narrows the gap. Instead of losing $270 worth of purchasing power, you're only effectively down by about minus 2.7% to 4% in real terms. And if you then use that business capital to generate profit, you flip the script entirely. Here's another angle. Let's say you somehow grind out $500 a month in personal savings. Over a year, that's $6,000. But if your rent renews at just a 5% increase and your groceries climb with inflation, that extra $6,000 gets swallowed by cost of living creep. You didn't do anything wrong, you're just playing defense in a game that rewards offense. Now, imagine instead you build EIN-only business credit and get access to $50,000 to $75,000 in business lines and cards with no personal guarantee. Even if your cost of capital is, say, 12% annually blended across different products, if you put that money into a legit cash-flowing business that returns 30 to 50% annually, you are now using leverage the way the system was designed to reward. Now, that doesn't mean go swipe $75K on a Shopify dropshipping course. It means understanding the math that if your return on capital exceeds your cost of capital, you win. If it doesn't, you're just another broke borrower. That's the kind of math the wealthy do in their head every day without even calling it math. Right now, EIN-only business cards and corporate charge cards are more mainstream than ever. Fintechs like Brex, Ramp, and others are literally advertising no personal guarantee, no personal credit check, which means they're not even pulling your SSN. They're underwriting based on your EIN, your business bank deposits, your revenue, and your cash runway. That means if your personal credit is a dumpster fire, but your business is even moderately put together, LLC formed, EIN obtained, business bank account open, money flowing in, you have a path. And here's where it gets more serious in 2026. The regulatory side is tightening up on who owns what and how. The Corporate Transparency Act and FinCEN's beneficial ownership information reporting rules mean that most LLCs and corporations now have to report who actually owns and controls the entity, with deadlines that have been stretching through 2024 and 2025. So if you're thinking you're going to play games with shell entities and fake addresses to get business credit, understand that the federal government has built a database specifically to see through that. On the lending side, the CFPB's Small Business Lending Rule under Regulation B has had its compliance dates extended into 2026 and beyond for certain tiers of lenders. That means banks and some lenders are going to be under more pressure to collect and report data on how they lend to small businesses, including demographic info. Translation, there's more scrutiny, but also more structured opportunity if you show up as a legitimate business and not just a guy with a Cash App account. So psychologically, here's where most of you are stuck. You're attached emotionally to your personal credit score as your identity. You feel ashamed if it's bad, so you avoid any conversation about credit or debt. You keep consuming at a slightly reduced level, but never fully pivot to being a producer. Think of building business credit like dating. If you walk into a relationship projecting desperation, texting nonstop, begging for validation, you get ghosted. Same thing with banks. If you look like a broke, chaotic mess mixing your OnlyFans subscriptions, gas, and grocery money in one personal checking account, no lender is taking you seriously. But if you show up as a clean, structured entity, LLC filed, EIN issued, business bank account open, deposits going in regularly, even if the numbers aren't huge yet, you look like someone who has their act together. When you look organized, you're more attractive to lenders, just like being emotionally stable makes you more attractive to partners. And yeah, you're probably thinking, Tanvir, my credit score is like 520. I've got collections, and I'm barely staying current on my bills. How the hell am I supposed to qualify for business credit with no personal guarantee? Or isn't all this EIN-only stuff just scammy CPN rebranded? Or don't I need to be making six figures in my business already? Let's address those head-on. First, EIN only is not code for fake identity. It's literally using your legitimate business identity as the borrower instead of you personally. Second, you don't need to be a giant company, but you do need real activity, actual revenue, consistent deposits, or strong cash balances for some of these no-PG corporate cards. Third, some of the best EIN-only cards are offered by fintechs who underwrite off cash flow, not credit score, which is perfect if your personal credit is shot, but you can generate money. There are business cards on the market right now that explicitly say no personal guarantee and EIN-only approval. Brex is the prime example. It does not require a personal guarantee, does not use your personal credit, and gives you high dynamic limits based on your company's financial profile. Ramp offers a corporate card that similarly skips the personal credit check and uses your EIN and business financials instead. Then you have other platforms that structure expense cards or charge cards off your EIN with no SSN required as long as your business meets their revenue or funding minimums. So how do you realistically build up to $75,000 in EIN-only business credit with bad personal credit? Let's break it down in a way that's actually executable. Step 1. Cleanly separate your business from your personal life. If you're running your business out of a personal checking account, that ends now. Form a legitimate LLC or corporation in your state. This is not just for vibes. This is the entity that lenders and the government will recognize. Get your EIN directly from the IRS for free. This number is your business's SSN. Open a business checking account in the LLC's name and start running every single business-related transaction through that account. This does two things. It gives lenders a clean set of bank statements to underwrite against, and it positions you for compliance under things like FinCEN's beneficial ownership rules, which lenders care about because they have to know who they're dealing with. Step 2. Start where the bar is lower, fintech and vendor accounts. If your personal credit is bad, walking into a Michelin star restaurant in pajamas and asking for a job as head chef, you're skipping steps. Instead, you go where they care more about business activity than your FICO. Apply for EIN-only corporate cards like Brex or Ramp if your business meets their minimums in revenue, funding, or cash on deposit. Use vendor credit and Net 30 accounts that report to commercial bureaus under your EIN. These are accounts where you buy goods or services and have 30 days to pay, and they help establish your business's credit profile even if you're small. Your goal in this phase is not huge limits, it's data and history. You want on-time payments every month, reporting to business credit bureaus like Dun Bradstreet or Experian Business, growing limits over time as you prove you're not a flake. Step 3. Stack limits strategically up to $75,000. Once you have your entity, bank account, some revenue, and initial EIN-based accounts reporting, you start building to that $75,000 target. That doesn't mean one magical card, it means stacking intelligently across multiple products. For example, a realistic stack could look like this over 12 to 24 months. $10,000 to $20,000 total across vendor and Net 30 accounts that you cycle monthly, $20,000 to $30,000 limit on a corporate charge card like Brex or Ramp if your business meets their minimums in revenue, funding, or cash on deposit, $15,000 to $25,000 on an additional EIN-only expense card or line of credit from another fintech. Individually, none of these are mind-blowing. Combined, you're sitting on $45,000 to $75,000 in usable business credit capacity that does not rely on your personal FICO and does not come with a personal guarantee. That's the power of understanding the ecosystem instead of just randomly applying and getting denied. Now, before you get too excited, here's the harsh part. Access to credit is not the goal. Profitable deployment of credit is. If you build $75,000 in EIN-only credit and then blow it on lifestyle, you just moved your broke habits into a new container. That's not leverage, that's suicide with extra paperwork. So here are 3 specific things you can start doing today to move toward this, even if your personal credit is wrecked. Action 1. Formalize your business in the next 24 to 72 hours. If you've been side hustling, DoorDash, digital products, reselling, freelancing, stop treating it like a hobby. Go file your LLC or corporation. Then get your EIN directly from the IRS website. It's free and it takes minutes. Open a business checking account and route every dollar of business income into it from now on. This alone separates you from like 70% of people who talk about starting a business but never create a legal entity. You're building the skeleton that business credit runs on. Action 2. Start your EIN-only credit profile with low-hanging fruit. Apply for at least 2 or 3 vendor or Net 30 accounts that are known to report to business credit bureaus and accept early-stage businesses. Use them responsibly. Order what you actually need for the business: software, supplies, shipping, etc. Pay on time or early and let that data build your profile. Once your business bank account shows consistent activity and your vendor accounts show a track record, then you look at EIN-only corporate cards like Brex or Ramp if your business meets their criteria. Remember, some of these cards explicitly say no personal credit check, no personal guarantee, approval based on your EIN and business financials. That's exactly what you want if your personal credit is shot. Action 3. Design a clear plan for using that future $75,000. Do not wait until you have the credit lines to start thinking about what to do with them. That's how people end up swirling in shiny object syndrome and wasting it on random, untested ideas. Instead, sit down and define, what business model are you scaling? Service, product, content, local business, etc. What are the unit economics? If you spend $1,000, how much revenue does that reasonably generate? What infrastructure investments make you more money? Better fulfillment, ads with proven ROAS, equipment that directly increases capacity. Your priority is cash flowing positive uses of credit, not vanity. If your effective cost of capital is 12% and you're consistently generating 40% or more in returns on that capital in your business, you're doing what rich people do. You're letting inflation, cash flow, and leverage work for you instead of against you. Meanwhile, in the background, you can be slowly rebuilding your personal credit, catching up on late accounts, settling collections, bringing utilization down. But you're not waiting until your personal credit is perfect to start moving. You're building a parallel track where your business becomes the qualified borrower. One more thing. Because of beneficial ownership reporting and the CFPB small business lending rules kicking in over the next couple of years, the window where you can be sloppy or vague about your entity is closing. Lenders and regulators will know who's behind the LLC, what kind of business it is, and how it borrows. That's not a reason to panic, it's a reason to do it right from the start. So if you're sitting there thinking, this is overwhelming, that's normal. You've been trained to think in terms of, can I afford this monthly payment, instead of, how can I become the entity that gets paid? But the same way you learn to navigate credit cards, BNPL, and subscription traps, you can learn to navigate business credit, with the difference being this game has an actual exit. In 2026, the math does not reward being a perfect little saver who dutifully parks money in a 0.01% account while inflation eats 2.7% of it and mortgage rates stay around 6.1%. The math rewards people who build legitimate entities, separate personal and business finances, use EIN-only no personal guarantee business credit to access tens of thousands of dollars in capital, deploy that capital into cash-flowing assets instead of lifestyle. You can stay on the path you're on, hoping your W-2 and a few budget cuts will save you, or you can accept the raw reality. The system is not going to come save you, but your business can.